Hello everyone, Jacquie Edwards here. Thank you for joining me. My new office is getting more and more whipped into shape. You can see all the pretty things in the background. Anyways, I've also got workmen here at the moment, so if you hear lots of banging, that's what's happening. The electricians are here, a kitchen installer's here, fitting our fifth try at a worktop. The company kept sending the worktops that didn't line up. But anyways, I think we're there now. So today I wanted to talk about rent to rent, and our theme this month has been around kind of working smarter, not harder. So I wanted to talk about how to know if you're working too hard to make your rent to rent business work. So are you working too hard to make rent to rent work for you? Now, how you would there's I start to struggle with this every once in a while, because sometimes I get that feeling inside of me that I have to be working harder and harder and harder, and if I'm not feeling like I'm working really hard, then it's I'm not doing anything. I start to feel like I'm lazy because I'm not exhausted at the end of the day, or I'm not pulling my hair out in frustration, and that's not how it needs to be. You don't need to be working super hard. You need to be working smart, but you still need to be working. So that doesn't mean your business is instantly like 100% passive and you just sit down and watch the money come in, which I think that whole term passive income is slightly misleading in that way, because a lot of us get into property on the, property investing on the thoughts of passive income. And we get really excited that, we'll be able to have all this financial freedom, we'll leave all that hard work behind, and everything's going to be easy once we get up and running. But I don't believe that there is really passive income in property investing. Even in business, like even if you look at somebody like Richard Branson, who has a number of businesses, he still has to do a regular review of what's going on in his business portfolio, meeting with his business managers and his advisors. So even if you have a portfolio of properties that's 100% managed by somebody else, you still need to be overseeing that management. So no matter where you go in whatever business you choose, there will need to be some oversight, and you will never be 100% passive, because you will have to put time and effort into your business. And especially so in the beginning. It doesn't need to be exhausting. It doesn't need to be like hard work where you're exhausted at the end of the day and you just feel drained. You can work smarter. You can have, use systems and use other people. In school, we're always taught, oh, don't look at what somebody else is doing, don't cheat off of their papers. But we can do that now here in business. We can work from what somebody else has done and learn from what they've done to improve upon it, or to just make our lives easier. So that's why I've written my books. If you've seen my books out there, the Rent to Rent Getting Started Guide and Rent to Rent Your Questions Answered, that's why I put programs together, so that you've got a step-by-step method that you can follow. Now, I've got loads of free videos and blogs and information for you to follow as well, so that you can work smarter, not harder. And you'll know you're working too hard oftentimes when you're not seeing the results that you want and you're still exhausted at the end of the day. Or oftentimes it comes as a result of like a bit of procrastination or a little bit of buffering somewhere. So you look at your to-do list, you're like, oh my God, I've got all these things to do. Oh, I'm just gonna spend 10 minutes on Rightmove, and 10 minutes turns into 3 hours. And that's when you start to think maybe something's not working right here. And that's when you need to pull it back and go back to basics and really think through, what am I trying to accomplish? And what do I have to do to accomplish that? Because there's so many things that you don't have to do that are just nice to haves. Like even going on Rightmove at all, you don't have to do that. You can just call up some agents. You could just Google letting agents in my area and start calling them and say, I'm interested in, 4-bedroom properties or 5-bedroom properties or 1-bedroom properties in, this area. And they can do the work for you. 10 minutes, done, instead of hours and hours on Rightmove. Make it as easy as possible. Do your viewings in kind of blocks. So pick, a day or 2 days a week that's when you're going to do viewings. You've got, 1 hour that day, 3 hours that day, whatever it is, book them all for then. Do all your phone calls 1 time a week. So you kind of set yourself up to make it as easy as possible. So you sit down at your desk, you're like, today is Monday, today's the day I call to schedule my viewings for this weekend. So you sit down on Monday, you have your list of here's who I'm going to call. You call these agents, set up your viewings for Monday or for the weekend, and away you go. Maybe you want to send some HMO letters. So on Tuesday, I write my envelopes for my letters. So write all the envelopes, get all the mail merge done, write your letter, done. Tuesday, tick. So however you want to set it, instead of kind of scattergunning it. So, today I'll do a viewing here, and tomorrow I'll do a viewing there. And today I'll spend 3 hours on Rightmove to set up a couple of viewings for throughout the week. And maybe today I'll write 5 letters, and I found some time tomorrow, I'll write 5 letters, and then you're all over the place. And it's getting a lot harder. It's just a lot of effort to constantly switch between different tasks and to multitask. I know everybody's like, yay, multitasking, it's super good, you'll get so much more done. It's not as efficient or as effective as if you just sit down, set up a specific time that in this 1 hour, I'm going to get this job done. Because if that's all the time you give yourself, that gets done in that hour. So really being focused with what you have to do, that's going to get you the results and when you're going to do it. So really focusing on what you have to do to get the results. So break it down into its smallest pieces and into the most necessary ones. Because there's a lot of things that are nice to haves and that we could be doing. And, oftentimes a lot of training falls into this, watching videos, reading books. I love all of those things, but if you're exhausted and feel like you're not getting anywhere, then you need to really dial it back into doing viewings. Doing viewings is what's going to get you property deals. It's great to have more knowledge and to learn better ways of doing things, but getting out and doing those viewings, so the time that you spend at the viewings is pretty much the only really relevant time that you've got to getting a deal. Because if you're not doing viewings, no matter how many books you read, how many agents you call, how much time you spend on Rightmove, how many bank accounts you set up and limited companies you set up, you're not going to have the properties unless you're out there viewing them. And whether you're viewing them through sourcing agents or letting agents or direct to landlord marketing, whatever you're doing, that's the key task to get the viewing scheduled. Everything else is just an added bonus. Now, I know we've got to do our business setup stuff and we have to have a bank account and, we have to have all the legal things in place, our ombudsman and our redress scheme and all of that fun stuff. But you don't have to spend a lot of time doing those. So if you set aside and say, I'm going to spend, half an hour setting up my redress scheme, job done. So use that checklist for my Rent to Rent Getting Started guidebook. And you can bang out lots of that stuff super quickly and get to focusing on the viewings. And make sure that you don't feel like you have to be working super hard, that it's not all about how much time and how much effort you put into it. It's about putting your time and effort into the most important tasks. So you'll know you're working too hard if that's all you're doing is working. Your brain is absolutely exhausted. You've been just on the line for hours and hours and hours, and you still don't have any deals or any leads or any viewing scheduled. So make sure you're working smart. Make sure you've got a system. Make sure you've got a plan. The most important thing we can do each week and each day is just set up a plan so that we know what we're going to do and where we're going to focus. And that's how you'll get the job done, and that's how you'll move forward in your business. So hopefully you found that useful. I am going to have to check off because I've got another call in a minute and I just need to make sure I'm all settled. So thank you for joining me. Again, make sure you check out my books if you want that kind of step-by-step checklist. Make sure you check out my programs and I will see you next week. Thank you so much for joining me.